Good afternoon, and welcome to the latest in Confessions of a Gamer with me, Voice of the Forge. Today's topic is going to be about how there are some games that reviewers don't like, whether or not it's because of an ideological position. And yes, I am looking at you, Jim Sterling, and your Star Fox review in the wake of the firing of Alison Rapp, whereby he claims the control system is such that he can't play it and it's therefore rubbish. And this takes me back to my gameplay. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm a professional game reviewer, so my skill set is obviously one that is lower than his. And yet, I still find myself capable in many instances of completing games. Maybe it's the genres that I choose. For example, I am an absolute fan of 4X titles. I love the ever-loving crap out of them. I really do. They allow me to take my time to plan and do everything that I need to do to plan a victory. And even strategy JRPGs like Final Fantasy Tactics and the Disgaea series. Again, they're something that you can take your time with, you can study, and you can come with workable conclusions, which enable you eventually to be able to beat levels and progress with a story. Just recently, I've been, as you may have been paying attention, you'll notice I've been playing Stardew Valley. In that, the fail state is very much a little thing. It means that you miss out on a day, you may forget to do something, you may run out of energy, but you've got plenty of time to be able to pick up the slack and to be able to actually complete what you're doing. Now, some people will obviously do it faster than others, and I dare say that when my next videos from Stardew Valley go up, which have been progressed in game so that you're not seeing the evolution of that save game right all the way through, you will see that there will be other people at the same time frame who have got vastly more of their farm sorted and vastly more of the cash crops implanted, and therefore they appear to be far away and ahead of me in the game. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter. I'm enjoying the game for what it is, and I don't feel the need to be able to beat it around the head at every turn just because I happen to know the value of one or two things. And I prefer to make things a little bit more organic, which is why I really loved the Harvest Moon series. And talking of Harvest Moon, I've also recently been playing Tale of Seasons, which is a game which is a spin-off from the Harvest Moon series, where the owners of the original name and the developers of the game have gone their separate ways. So Harvest Moon now isn't the same people that made the original Harvest Moon. And Tale of Seasons has its moments. I have to admit I'm finding it more difficult to get into because some of the gameplay things within it I just find a little bit too cutesy and kiddie. But that being said, at the end of the day, it's a farming sim game and I quite enjoy it. Alongside that, I've also been playing Fantasy Life. Both of these games are on the 3DS, and I play them on a 2DS because I really can't see the point in paying the extra £60 just for a little bit of a 3D effect. Maybe it's because I don't see it that well, or maybe it's because I just don't see it as much of a gimmick to me. Either way, 60 quid gets me a couple of extra games, I'm happy. So I've been playing these games, and because they are quite simple games to get into, and they're there more for the experience than a lot of other things, it's not asking you for rapid hand-eye coordination or anything else. I realised that I really do suck at some games. The latest one that I have come to grips with is Destiny. First person shooter, RPG light, and yeah, I'm 35, 40 hours in, and I have to admit, yeah, I've done the single player. I'm now having to chew through some of the bits where I have to team up with others, and we all know what teaming up with random people is like, especially if you've played any World of Warcraft. And you realise that, yeah, maybe you're just not cut out for this first-person shooting lark. If you were to see the rest of my achievements on the Xbox 360, the reason I have one of those is because it's a cheap system. And I have a PS3 as well, but I have far more games for the 360 because they're always usually discounted in my local second-hand retailers. You'll see a dearth of actual games which require first-person shooting. Now, there are some third-person shooters that you could argue with, things like the silly game Eat Lead, The Return of Matt Hazard, and you could also say something similar about Tomb Raider and Uncharted on the PS3, but I don't know, there's something special about the first-person genre which leaves me cold. And I think it is because, unlike most of the other games, you can't fail to the top. And what I mean by this is, if I play a game of World of Tanks, if I play a game of Fantasy Life or Civilization or anything like this, in which I can get a grasp of the way in which the games work, over time I can improve either my strategy or my knowledge of how the game works, so that I can actually make a better fist of the game next time I try and play. Sometimes it just means that the fail state in a game is so low that actually losing once in a while isn't such a bad thing, and therefore I can actually pick myself up, dust myself off and try again, which is awesome. But when you get to a position where you get people that turn up and they look at what you're doing and they go, quit, because I don't want to do this particular piece of content, and you have to have 3 people for the majority of this, you realise that you really are a handicap sometimes to other people, and you're just really grateful sometimes that they let you tag along, because you know you're not great. I mean, Borderlands for me was a trial. I loved the storyline and everything else, but I really sucked. The fact of the matter was, I could progress through Borderlands through killing some of the same bad guys over and over again until I got to a level where they became easier to kill. And Destiny multiplies that, at least in the solo player game, by hitching drops to your character level. So when you're level 40 and you're doing certain content, you're getting high-end level 30 plus drops, which means that you can still sort of improve your gear to a level, so you're able to actually compete. Now, with games like Sproggywood, which is another one of my favourites, I'll be doing a video on that one soon, and what's another one I've been playing recently? Oh yes, Wayward, which is only just released as early access on Steam. These are games whereby you can actually sit back and go, right, I did X or Y wrong, I won't do that next time. Whereas Destiny, it's kind of like, holy hell, where did that come from? Oh, look, I'm dead, please revive me. What did I do wrong there? What did I do right? Okay, let's give this another go. And whilst there are tactics to certain areas, there isn't the same amount of tactics other than get behind some cover and make sure they don't shoot you. Shoot them before they shoot you, sort of thing. It just leaves me cold, and this is the reason why I called this one Failing to the Top. In games like World of Tanks, the same thing might happen, but you gain a little bit of money, the silver, and you gain a little bit of experience, even if it's only double figures, which is shockingly bad. But if you are patient enough, you can still work your way through to higher tanks, to higher levels, and ultimately get to the tier 10 games, which is endgame content. With games like Destiny, you find you hit a plateau where you can't actually complete content, which I suppose is by design, And I agree with it as a gatekeeping thing for certain content in games like World of Warcraft, purely because in games like that it should be about the gear and the player skill set rather than just prizes for all. But at the same time, even with World of Warcraft, if you took the time and studied things, you would still be able to learn, or at least one would hope that you'd be able to learn. I mean, I just got into raiding at the end of the Wrath of the Lich King because I was that behind. But I made mistakes and I learned from them. I learned tactics, and one of the big ones was don't stand in the shit, which unfortunately a lot of DPS characters didn't. The aggro system and the way we should work, because I was a tank, I used to have to learn things and make sure that I was on top of my game. In games like Destiny, even when I've looked at the YouTube channels and done everything else to try and figure out how to beat certain things, you still got the random ads, you still got the randomness of other players who expect you to either be better than you are or just don't care, and will, as soon as there's a hitch, will just drop, which leaves you stranded in the middle of an instance hoping that somebody else comes along. Whereas a lot of games, even if you fail, they give you a chance to improve. And I suppose that's probably why I didn't complete a lot of games like Resident Evil and the rest of them, because the time investment to actually get anywhere was sometimes so great for my skill level that I gave up. Whereas things like the Secret of Mana series and Final Fantasy and other things like it, they actually allowed you to learn tactics, but they also allowed you to gradually increase your power level to a point where things became slightly easier, which meant that you could then carry on with the adventure and the storyline. And I think this is particularly important when we look at certain people in the media who have called for certain games to have their gameplay element removed, combat in a majority of instances, so that they can enjoy the game. And with my skill set being the way that it is with games, and by no means am I a great games player, I just really, really enjoy my games. And in the wake of Jim Sterling and the Nintendo sister and the Nintendo debacle with Star Fox, we have to ask ourselves, at what point do we gatekeep content to keep certain people out of certain content? Because at the end of the day, the argument is they've paid for the game, they should be able to access it fully. But then you could say the same thing about games in the 8-bit era on the NES, where if you were crap at aiming with the gun, you never got very far in Duck Hunt. If you were crap at fighting games, you never got very far in those, and some of those were merciless. Especially, I forget the name of it, but it was like it might even be Shinobi, where certain level spawns and certain jumps were pixel perfect. And if you failed them, that was it. You started all the way back at the start of a level, or you even ran out of lives and had to start the whole game again. I mean, we would have people now chomping on their controllers at the difficulty level of some of the games back then, because they had to make the game last somehow. So they had to make you put in the time and the effort to get good at the game in order to beat it. And I don't have a problem with that. My problem is that I know that I do not play enough of the Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, or latest shooting game that there is. I don't want to necessarily get to Ultra League Pro skills in that game any more than I want to do that in League of Legends. And that isn't because I'm necessarily dissing the games, it is purely because they don't hold my interest. So, because they don't hold my interest, I don't necessarily put the time in to get good at them. Currently working my way through another game, Alan Wake. I'm currently I've completed that on one setting, and I'm now going back to it on a harder setting to see whether or not I can actually complete the actual game whereby I've picked up all the manuscripts. I think it's Nightmare mode is the hard mode, where you have to go through and do things, but you have to play through the game once to unlock it, rather than like Matt Hazard. Oh no, Matt Hazard, you have to complete the game once to get through it as well, unless you know the cheat code. But yeah, there are games out there which reward you for playing on the highest difficulty setting straight away that you can manage. And I suppose it's a bit like Diablo 3. If you start off in normal and you've played any of the Diablo games, it's a bit anodyne, it's a bit weak. There's the challenge factor isn't there from day one, so you select the next one that you can, and it suddenly feels, oh, this is a bit more like Diablo 2, where if you're not paying attention, you could get swamped by creatures and find yourself killed. So, in short, I think that if you're a reviewer and you're not very good at video games, or you're not very good at a particular video game, then you should recuse yourself. You should turn around and say, I'm sorry, but I cannot do this game justice. Rather than giving it something like a 2 out of 10, because, oh, it's abominable because of this and that, and splurging all over the place. You should actually step up and say, you know what, this isn't my kind of game, I don't have the skills to play it, it doesn't float my boat, somebody else who's far more interested in this should play it, and give it a fair review. So why hasn't he? That's my thought for this on this time on Confessions of a Gamer. If you would like to ask any questions or comment, please feel free. All feedback is welcome. I have been, as always, Voice of the Forge, and thank you.